Start recording now. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Whitey and Wills show. This is week number 6 of our little experiment that we're doing, and we've got a full house on our panel today. Mike has lined up 3 teammates and a former coach of his from his Effingham High School football days. And Mike Wilson, I'm going to let you take care of the introductions here today and get us rolling.
All righty. Well, thanks, Dustin. And yeah, 6 weeks, again, the over under, we're doing well. We've exceeded expectations. We just had our 40th class reunion here a couple weeks ago. And as we mentioned, last week in the show, I was going to try to coerce a few guys on. And, our senior season of football at Effingham, it's kind of swept aside. We ended up in the semifinals of the playoffs, and 2 years ago, 2019, I know the Hearts did again, ended up in the semifinals. We've talked about this before. Had a great chance to go to the championship. It just didn't pan out at the end of the game. And, people kind of said, well, you guys' team you guys only won 2 games. They won 3. They went further. And you've heard that. And I thought, well, what greater time after our 40th reunion to bring back some guys who played, and circumstances were a lot different back then. So I'm going to have them tell us a little bit something of, what they're doing today. But we have Steve Fenoglio, Rick Mansfield, Ted Gravenhorst, and Coach Drew Potthoff. And Coach, we'll let you go first, since you always defer to coaches.
Yeah, thanks, Mike and Dustin. Thanks for having me on here. It's a real treat to see you guys and see some former players and stuff that I haven't seen in a long time. But I'm retired from coaching and athletic director. Did that for almost 40 years, and a couple of schools after I left Effingham, and was successful at a few of them. And now I'm retired, but I took over the Illinois Coaches Association as executive director, and I do that a couple days a week, and try to help coaches in all sports throughout the state. So that's what's keeping me busy right now.
All right. Mr. Gravenhorst, we'll let you go next.
Well, Mike, I look back, and I've spent the last 33 years at John Booz and Company in Effingham. Of course, we manufacture the stainless steel for food service. Of course, we do the wood for both food service and the residential markets, and vice president of sales. And I was traveling a lot before COVID, and it seemed like the last 20 years I spent most of my career between Effingham and on the road here in the United States. And COVID came around, and it kind of changed the thought process, and in terms of being on the road all the time. And of course, I have now 3 grandchildren and 2 grandsons that are starting to get into sports. And I spend a lot of time in Effingham, less travel. And I'm married, my wife Edna, and I've had a good career at John Booz and Company. I think there's still many, hopefully, some good years left. But it was one of the highlights of this year has been certainly that 40-year class reunion you spoke of, and been able to reconnect with so many of our classmates and some that have passed on. But I enjoyed. I know Steve and Rick are on the call as well, and I never get to spend enough time with your friends, and I hope to do a lot more of that in the future. And other than that, it's good. Thank you for Dustin and you having all of us together today. And that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Mr. Mansfield.
Yes. So after high school, went to Eastern with a couple of you guys, then went up to Chicago, spent about 12 years up there. Did a 2-year stint in Atlanta, and for the last 20 years, I've been in the Tampa area in Florida. Currently, me and a couple of guys on a construction company. We do underground utility construction. So I'm a sewer guy now. So every time I walk by a bathroom, I say it smells like money. I got 3 kids, 2 daughters. The oldest is she's in pediatrics residency at NYU. My second daughter is a guidance counselor over in Tampa, and my son is a senior at UF, and he's getting a degree in finance. So you know, they've all sort of flown the coop at this point, and me and my wife are empty nesters. So I want to travel a little bit. It was really, really enjoyed going back to Effingham. It had been a couple of years, several years actually, since I've been back. And, you know, it still feels like home. It really does. You know, you get back there and you just sort of chill, you know, everything feels right. So that's a lot of fun. Look forward to it again.
Mr. Fenoglio, you're our first international guest.
Thank you, Michael. That's a very fine honor. I went to Miami of Ohio with one of our classmates, Kim Parker, Miami University after Effingham, and then really took a lot of different jobs, moved to a lot of different places, Atlanta, Detroit, Chicago for many years. And then 16 years ago, I met a wonderful English woman and have since been living near Oxford, England for the last 12. And I also am a high school counselor helping international students find places at US universities. So Rick's daughter and I are leading the youth of today, which is frankly a little bit scary, I think.
Yeah.
I love it over here in England. It's very much, you know, it's very different. There's a little bit of American football. In fact, the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Dolphins played at Wembley Stadium this past weekend. That was pretty fun. But otherwise, we foster dogs and we go travel a lot. And we don't have children, and we travel a lot. We go all over the world: Indonesia, New Zealand, you know, lots of different places. So traveling to Effingham last week, or I guess it was last week, was interesting. I haven't traveled since COVID, and it was quite an experience, both good and bad. Great seeing all of you, of course, but it was a little bit of work getting on the plane and back.
I bet it was. Well, and we were glad to have you. You know, we had a lot of fun at the reunion. It was good to see everybody. Talking about this football team we played on, you know, getting to the semifinals of the playoffs and everything. You know, Teddy, you were starting center, also linebacker. Rick, you were wide receiver and safety. Steve, were you left or right tackle? I don't remember.
I think I switched off quite a bit, but I was mainly left, I believe.
Okay, all right. I knew you were one of the tackles. I just didn't always remember which one.
I snapped for extra points and punts as well.
That's
Don't
right,
forget that.
because we couldn't trust Teddy. I remember that.
That's right.
That's right.
I mean, back when we made that run, do you guys, I never got the sense that it was a big deal when we were playing, you know, to get that deep into the playoffs.
I would agree. I don't think the coaches let us make it a big deal. I think it was, you know, every Friday night was another game, and that was what we were concentrating on, and that's what we worked, you know, every game. It's such a, you know, the next game is the most important game. It's a terrible cliche in sports, but it's true. You got to think about the next game and not the bigger picture. I don't think we had any sense that we were going to go that far. I didn't, at least.
Well, I was adamant with the coaches not to put any, you know, extra pressure. Said, you know, just every game, and that's how Jack was. Coach Klosterman, you know, it was this, you know, this is the game we're getting ready for, and you know, he was always thinking 1 or 2 weeks ahead. I'll never forget my first year. I walked in on a Friday night before we went out, and he's watching film, and I said, Jack, you know, still watching that game film? He goes, no, this is for next week. He goes, Hayes in the barn for tonight. So I've never forgot that, and used that quote a lot in my coaching career. Hayes in the barn.
Well, I remember it was excruciating for me because I tore cartilage in my knee the last game of the season. So I missed Monticello and Greenville. I was on the bench. Finally was able to come back for Harrisburg, but that was really tough on me. I remember.
Now, Rick, when you came to town, was it your sophomore year or your junior year?
That was my junior year.
Steve, you were sophomore, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. You know, I was looking back at stuff. My dad's got all these old stats still from when he did radio, and I was amazed at looking back at our stats from when we played. You know, Jeff Stevenson averaged over 7 yards a carry.
Right.
That and you know, and I would never have assumed he was top 3 running backs in yardage on our team when I go back and think about it.
Same here.
Yeah. See, he peaked at the Monticello game. Boy, he had a great game. That was a game to remember.
You know,
But anyway, he you know, first half of the season, you know, he was kind of quiet, wasn't he? And then we get in the playoffs, and he just turned it on. Jeff just turned it on.
and
My
between
biggest
him and
memory of
Barry,
Jeff-
we had great speed. Those two were so fast.
Yeah. Yeah, my best memory of Jeff Stevenson is we threw that double reverse pass quite a bit, almost once a game. And as soon as we broke the huddle, every single time I would say, "Don't overthrow me," because you know I was not part of the speed of that team. And he had a good arm, man. He could put it out there. So I was always like, throw it high and not too far.
Yeah. Rick, you had tremendous hands. You caught everything. You know, looking, you know, Kenny Brockett, I know he was a little banged up that year. You know, I think he had knee injury, just, you know, like you dealt with, Rick. You know, he had a tremendous junior season. But, you know, one of the biggest things I'll never forget about that season, you know, we end the year on a Friday night beating Payne. And then we find out Saturday we're in the playoffs, and there wasn't a big watch party or any of that. You know, our first game was on Wednesday. And, you know, we go to Litchfield, and Coach Potthoff, you know, you always gave us the fire and brimstone pregame speech to take the field. You know, Jack would always just, you know, okay, Drew, and he'd just walk off and let you do it. But before we played Litchfield, Jack talked to us, and he did that speech, and I'll never forget, because, you know, we just found out we were getting kicked out of the Mid-State Conference, and I guess Litchfield was one of the big ringleaders of that. And, you know, I just remember him looking at us, and we were in shock because that wasn't Jack to give that speech, and just, you know, very steady voice. You know, this is about respect. And he says, they kicked me out of my conference. And maybe one of our best games we played all year. I mean, I know it was a very physical game. And, you know, that was awesome.
It was. And, you know, you don't realize it at the time, you know, and they've changed the playoff format, but, you know, you play Friday, then you got to get ready for a Wednesday game, and then you got to play Saturday again. And I tell you what, you know, I remember looking at halftime at the Monticello game, looking at you guys going, well, I don't know if we got anything left in our tank. But that was another great game. And I remember we kicked a field goal right before half, and that really shot up our momentum and stuff. But yeah, Jack wasn't much on talking before the game, but it meant a lot to him. He knew it was his last year, and you know, he hadn't told anybody yet, but he knew it. And, you know, he really wanted to, you know, leave a mark. Not that he hadn't already, you know, I can't say enough about Jack. My whole career is modeled after what Jack taught me. But yeah, I was shocked that he talked that night too. It was,
You know, you mentioned that, and I remember, you know, Eric Birch, our little sophomore kicker, I always teased him. He had, like, you know, bought his shoulder pads at Walmart, you know, and he wasn't very big. And it was almost like the fans from Monticello were laughing when he went out to kick that field goal at halftime. And he buried it. And it did. I mean, I think that gave us a lot of momentum. And, you know, Monticello had that Charlie Vincent. You know, I know Jack just beat us over the head about how good he was, and he was the Decatur Herald Player of the Year. And I've gone back and seen those stats before. And he had 100 yards, but he had 35 carries. I mean, we did a job on him. I say we, the defense did a job on him.
Yep. Well, that was a good defense that year. I mean, I was looking over the sheets you gave me, and the thing that really jumps out at me, I mean, the rushing and stuff, you know, Stevenson had, 586 yards, but we rushed for over 1,000, you know, a lot of guys carrying the ball. The thing that really jumped out at me as a coach is 41 takeaways, 26 interceptions and 15 fumbles. I mean, that's phenomenal. You don't hear of that. You don't see that in football, not anywhere, not now. But that was one of Jack's things on defense, you know, make them give up the ball. And of course we had Tim Stewart, you know, running around on the defensive backfield. He had 10 interceptions, and I think the next year he had 15. So, but yeah, that's some of those things just stand out. And but the biggest thing is it was a team effort with you guys that year. There was no quote unquote superstar. No, the quarterback wasn't throwing for 3,000 yards and stuff like that. But we had some guys that could do it. We had some guys that were surprised. Ted's brother Barry come up as a sophomore, and I tell you what, he could run that 848, and once Barry got going, he was hard to catch. He was quick and fast, but all those guys were. They really were. And Jack, his offense was, basically, let's grind them down. And when Jack wanted to pass, usually people were open. So it was a lot of fun. Learned a lot from him.
That interception, 26, I check the program every year just to make sure we still hold the record for team interception. And, Mr. Mansfield, Mr. Gravenhorst, and I each had one of those 26. Now, Rick, you claim a lot of them were stolen from you.
Tim was so fast. I remember a couple of times I would be sitting there waiting for the ball, and he would come right in front of me and pick it off. And God bless him, he didn't drop any of them.
So, that's some impressive numbers. And the 3 games in 8 days, Drew, like you talked about, we didn't know any different, though. You know what I mean?
No.
It was, morning practice. Okay, here's what we're working on this, and, the Charlie Vincent and a story. We had a defensive end from Beecher City, Rusty Moore was a junior. And I remember Rusty wasn't the most textbook at tackling. He was kind of the farm boy, I'm going to grab you around the neck and throw you to the ground. And I remember Jack telling him that in practice, Rusty, this big guy, you cannot tackle him that way. You have to grab it. You got to line, hang on, and help's got to come. And Rusty said, Coach, I've tackled my grandpa's horses before in the pasture. And, and even Jack, practice was great because Jack, he's laughing his head. And I just still remember Rusty grabbing Charlie Vincent around the neck one time and flipping him over his hip and throwing him to the ground. And, we kind of, I think at that point felt all is good in the world. We're going to be okay. I know Teddy and Charlie Vincent became good friends throughout that game. Teddy, you wore him down pretty good because he ran right at you all day. Teddy froze up.
Teddy froze up.
Oh, there he's back, maybe.
Are you back, Theo?
I think that's a cardboard cutout. He must have to go to the restroom.
It may be. That may be.
That's the
Steve,
thing.
what's the one thing?
That's the
What's
best
that?
presentation he's done all year.
We saved that for his salespeople. Steve, what's one thing you really, and I know we all remember certain things. What's one thing you probably remember from that season?
Me? Well, other than the missed block I had on a screen for Mansfield that fumbled him to the ground that he won't let me forget ever. We really had a good group of guys. I think we just all got along really well, and we helped each other out. I remember asking Teddy a couple of times, who am I supposed to block on this play? And he would always help me out, or another one of the guards would let me know. And then after 5 or 6 games, we really knew all the plays, and we really knew the whole format that Coach Klosterman was trying to lay out. And I think we then, not only did we have the camaraderie, but we had a good sense of what we were doing as a team, and wearing them down and running a lot of plays, and, the screen plays to Mansfield. And then we'd go deep a couple of times. And, by the end of the first half, we'd typically be ahead. And then it was just kind of maintaining the lead throughout the second half. But I think the camaraderie is probably what stands out the most for me. Of course, there were some individual plays that I had that were spectacular, but we don't need to go into those now.
Well, all right. So, Rick, what about yourself?
Well, one of the things that I remember is the double sessions every day throughout the year, and I don't know how many schools do that anymore. And of course, I'm sure we complained about it, but we do half pads in the morning. But I just think there was just a commitment, a team commitment that we were going to be good and do our best. And it was just a lot of fun. I mean, that was truly a team effort. Drew mentioned it earlier that there weren't superstars on the team, but everybody chipped in, and everybody, it seemed like at the right time, would lift up, and make a good play. So it was just a lot of fun.
Teddy, are you unfrozen or are you frozen again?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, we were talking about Monticello. Yeah, I don't know if you heard, but that was a great game, one to remember. And was it Charlie Vincent? Is what we were talking about, Mike?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You spent a lot of
And,
time
yeah.
with him, and you hugged it out with him a lot that game.
Well, we all did, but I certainly he certainly kept coming at us, and that's for sure. And that before that game, Drew and Jack never really looked at films in detail. And I remember Drew and Jack calling me downstairs, and I was down there watching Charlie, and they just kept showing Charlie. And you're right. Up until that point, I really wasn't nervous, but after being called in and that film, I thought, well, this must be an important game. And it turned out it was a great game for us, and everything that you all mentioned, very exciting. I do think that, starting with the coaches, Drew and Jack, that chemistry, how they fed off of each other, and how us as a team, Drew said, we didn't have any one star out there, and that's very true. But as a team, we really came together at the right time. People peak at the right time, as Jeff Stevenson, Rusty Moore, others not mentioned, and we really, and all of us, just again, not really thinking how important it was at the time, each game, but went out and played our hearts out, and came together.
I want to ask a question, because I know we don't have a ton of time, but I did want to get this out there. And you guys were all in high school, so I don't know how much of a perspective you had on this at the time, but did you get the sense when you were playing for Jack Klosterman that this was a guy that they were going to be like naming the field after someday, somebody that was going to go down as a legend? I mean, I'm fairly new to the scene, so I've been doing football games on the radio for about 10 years, but that's all before my time. So I'm just kind of curious if you realized who you were playing for at the time.
No, I didn't. I transferred in as a junior. And I remember my football coach from Belleville had called Jack. And the first time I met him, he was like grandpa, such a mild-mannered guy. remember seeing him get upset. But he, he actually had some players come over and meet with me. I moved in the summer, so it was going to be one long, boring, ugly summer for me. But he made sure that I, met some guys and got involved in, some stuff during the summer. But he was, it was interesting because he was so mild-mannered, but he was so creative, and some of the plays that we ran, and, he was just a great guy. But no, I had no idea sort of the lineage that he left and the games that he won. And I mean, he's a special guy.
I think he just had an inherent confidence as well that I'm sure he had forgotten more about football than I ever knew. And he just, when he walked onto that field, you knew it was Jack's field and it was his deal. And of course, Drew, you contributed, we all contributed, but he just had that inherent sense of, this is my show and I'm running it and nobody's going to tell me how to do it except my soul and my heart. And he ran with those two parts of his personality, and that served him very well. So he just had an inherent confidence, I would say, with Jack.
And when you mentioned Jack was older, and there was at times you always think, well, is he always aware of everything going on in practice? Could we sneak things by him? And I still joke with Gail Higgs about this because we had like 800 different screenplays we had, in our playbook. And Gail, we're doing those morning workouts, and Gail would call a screen, and he'd always look at me, and I'd have to tip my head one side or the other. So Gail knew which side to throw the screen to, because, and we thought he and I were the only ones that knew this was going on. And then one day Jack called a screen, and Gail looked at me, and I went, I shrugged my shoulders. And Jack had just made it up. There wasn't a play. And then he jumps my ass. Come on, Wilson. Didn't you know what's going on? Gosh dang, you've been telling Higgs all damn year where to throw the ball. And, everybody had a laugh. But you just thought, no, Jack didn't know that was going on. Well, yeah, he did.
I have to laugh on Mondays when we would meet for coffee in his garage, or Sunday afternoon after the pro games. Jack would have 3 or 4 new plays that he watched at college games or pro games and put them in. And one time I told him, we got a lot of screens, we got a lot of stuff going on. I'm worried about Steve and my lineman guys. And he goes, they'll pick it up. Don't worry about it. So he was, here's a guy who coached for over 25 years, never had a losing season. He's in the Hall of Fame. And, every time I go up to U of I look for those Hall of Fame plaques, and they're just put them back out in the stadium. So that's just something about Jack. And somebody mentioned, he was always confident. He was, that year, if you remember, we lost a heartbreaker to Newton 14-13. And as a young coach, I'm all fired up. I want to go, and just tear down everything and start over and blah, blah, blah. And he said, Drew, just relax. This team is special. We're going to be okay. And, he knew what he was talking about. And he didn't get upset very often. When he did, he could rock your world, but not very often. And I think that was a big thing because he never got excited during the game. He never, he was always 3, 4, 5 plays ahead and working things out. And I think that helped.
When you mentioned him always thinking ahead, for 2 years, my job was the runner. So I'd go from Jack to Sam Rickelman and tell him to play. And I was like, this, it got to be where I knew what we were going to run because I knew how Jack was calling games. And I used that as a basketball coach as much as anything when I coached was, I'm going to keep setting you up. We're going here. We're going here. Oh, they're going here again. No, now we're going here. And Jack would just play the other team a lot of times. It was, they're playing checkers. He's playing chess. He's 2 or 3 moves ahead every time. And you hit the nail on the head. He was. Absolutely.
And our best play was the 848. That's sweet. But when we ran the tackle trap to the backside with Steve, pulling, and nobody at that time pulled a tackle. Nobody. Yeah. Everybody pulled guards. And all of a sudden, you got a huge tackle coming down. That play never got stopped. It was always positive yardage. But that's right. He would set you up, and never threw to the tight ends very much. They were basically blockers, but when you threw to tight end like Clark Ashbaugh, it was a long gain or a touchdown. So
Did you just call me huge?
back then you're pretty skinny now. I don't know if you can still play lineman. You probably
I
have
don't
to
know.
put you out in the
Probably
slot or
not.
something.
Hey, he had his Letterman's jacket on at the class reunions at the
I bet he
tailgate. I was
did.
impressed.
Yeah, he did.
Drew,
Proud
at
of
what point at what point during that season did you guys ever think this team has a chance to make a run?
And I was a young coach, and one of my goals was always, you win a state championship. Let's get in the playoffs, and the playoffs were fairly new then too. I thought after we got on a roll because we started out, we beat Flora, lost to Newton, and then squeaked by Greenville, and then we started scoring points, and probably after we hammered Pana, I thought we had a real chance. And we weren't supposed to win a game in the playoffs. It was like, that's just Effingham, and especially when we drew Litchfield. But after we beat Litchfield, I said, this could be something special. And it was a great run. 9-3. That's a great record. A lot of fun, and then I still have nightmares about Harrisburg and straight T. So, I said, they were very good. They were very good. And Teddy, you can attest to this. You played middle linebacker. That quarterback turned around, shuffled the deck. We didn't know where the ball was going. They were very good. Alway was the coach, and they were very good at what they did.
I agree. I still have nightmares of that game as well. And we just were making the tackles. They get 5 yards, 6 yards, 8 yards. They just keep coming at us. I had more tackles that game, but none of them were where they needed to be at the line of scrimmage. They were 5, 6, 7 yards beyond the line in a big game, and they wore us down.
Yeah,
they were good.
Right, and you look at the score. We scored 14 points, and people will say, "Well, you didn't have a good offensive game." We didn't have the ball.
Right.
They had the ball the whole game.
Yeah, that's true. And Rick and I talked about that game playing golf during the reunion.
Yeah.
And it was just, we were all, heck, I can remember begging to get in and play D tackle. Just give me, I'm stealing hand pads from people. Give me a chance.
Yeah, it was, I don't know if they punted. I mean, they just gashed us. And I remember in the second half, John Luckett, I feel bad to this day about this, but I thought, he was about, a foot taller than me. And I just remember reaching up and grabbing his face mask with 2 hands and telling him, you got to stand up. But they were unbelievable how they ran the football. Really were.
Yeah, like a lot of things. Like you think back and you wonder what could we have done differently, and what could the players have. You look at it and you don't have those answers, but you can't go back. But there's certainly maybe some things we all would have changed, and knowing what we know today, but we don't have that fortitude to be able to do that. So it's. Anyway.
But I tell you what, they set us up too, because I do remember they ran the ball so well. So of course, we were up supporting the run, and then they throw a pass, and we just weren't ready for it. They played a good game.
Did they win the championship title?
No, they lost to Mascuda.
Morris.
Morris.
We went up. I remember some of us went up, and Morris came out in Washington Redskins uniforms. They were the Redskins, and they may have shut them out. They were the biggest high school team I've seen back. I mean, those Morris guys were huge.
Yeah. That was Morris's heyday, and they just stoned them at the line of scrimmage, and I remember watching that game too. I was mad. Should have been us.
One thing, we putting what we had Gail Hibbs, our quarterback in today's game with this run pass option thing, as athletic as Gail was, he could have been, a dynamic player in today's game running the football from the quarterback position with what he had and what we had as a team. When you look at the guys we had running it and now add that as another option, him running the ball, that'd have been, even more impressive.
Jack didn't like running his quarterbacks. He wanted to protect the quarterback and couldn't touch him in practice and things like that. But that was his philosophy. But I think you're right. I think Gail would have made some great decisions and would have given us another option. And he wasn't Jack's typical quarterback. He liked the big tall guys and stuff like that. But Gail was smart, didn't make any mistakes.
All right, Mr. Fenoglio, I know you've got to get the tea. So anybody else have anything to add today? And
yeah, the one thing I remember, Drew, is you used to tape our ankles before practice and games. And man, you were a sadist because you would whip off a big piece, slap it right on our hairy thighs, and then just giggle your ass off. I'll never forget that.
Yeah. Yeah, he did. He was very consistent. And I still don't today.
Yeah, I remember that. I can't deny that was one of my pleasures to do stuff like that. But yeah, the coaches tape back then, and that was a long process. So you have to have a little bit of fun. But I told you guys, shave your ankles, and
yeah, but
they
you'd
started
still
learning. They
get
started
this far
shaving.
above you'd still get this far above the shave line, Oh,
You
I need
gotta
an anchor. I need an anchor.
Got to have something to hold on to. So
Well, after you got done with this, Drew, we didn't need to shave our ankles.
yeah, that's true. That's good memories.
Good fun.
All the Effingham kids, I see a lot of them on Facebook, things like that, and I miss that whole atmosphere, Effingham, all those kids, and miss Jack Klosterman. Every day I coached as a head coach, I thought of Jack, but there's something special, man. Maybe it was my first school or whatever, but just something special about Effingham kids, and talking with you guys just proves it. And I hope you guys had a great reunion. I hope a lot of people came back, and just thanks for the opportunity to remember some of this stuff. And talk to Rich McWhorter sometimes about some of the stuff that he tells everybody I did. I don't remember some of the stuff he said.
Yeah, he did mention you guys used to hang out in coaching clinics. So
we did, and we actually become good friends. We vacation together. He was actually best man in my wedding. So so my connections to Effingham are still strong. I wish I could get back there some more, but it's just and people ask me why, what was different about the Effingham kids than anybody else you coached. I said, well, number one, they were disciplined, and we didn't have any problems because all we had to do was threaten to call home, and their mom, you guys moms and dads, I didn't have any problems.
well, appreciate that. And gentlemen, I appreciate you being on. I had to twist some arms, but you all agreed. So I do appreciate that. And thank you very much for that. And I do know that we have to find ways to get together more than every 5 or 10 years or 20 years because we had it was just like we were back at your house, Rick, playing poker on a Saturday night again. I mean, it was, the same jokes and the same camaraderie, and that's good. And this group we played football with was a special group. We had great success that I don't think we understood we were having, to be honest. And I think that's what made it more special.
Great.
Yep.
All righty. Well, thank you guys. And I'll send you out an email when we get this up and running today, and you can view it and say, hey, I didn't say that. So.
Yeah,
Great to
thanks.
see you guys.
All right.
Thanks.
See you
Take
guys.
care.
Thanks a lot.
Good to see you.
Good seeing you guys. Bye now.
Bye-bye now.
So Mike, as everybody else logs off, you and I can shift gears. We don't have a whole lot of local stuff to talk about this week. The fall sports season has kind of wound its way to a close, and we're in that in-between time before basketball starts, where there's not a ton of prep stuff to talk about. I know there was still a little bit of soccer going on. But other than that, Effingham football is really the only thing I've got for you. And I can give you a couple minutes on Effingham football. Went down to Mater Dei and Breeze this week, and took a pretty convincing loss to the Knights, but the best team that the Hearts have played since week 2, no doubt about it. And
Would you say Decatur St. Teresa's better than Mater Dei, Dustin, from what
no,
you're seeing?
I would not say that.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's hard to make that comparison. I would find it difficult to differentiate one from the other. They're both very good. St. Teresa ran the ball better against the Hearts than Mater Dei did, but I think what Mater Dei brought to the table was the same thing they always do, which is that they've got a lot of athletic kids, a lot of options they can go to, and they don't give you the opportunity to say, we're gonna shut down this guy and give ourselves a fighting chance. They didn't throw the ball around as successfully as I have seen Mater Dei do in past years against Effingham, but yet on one drive in particular, they went from having not completed a pass to completing a pass to like 5 different guys. And that's in high school, you don't see that very often. That's not every team can do that. Not every team has 5 guys on their entire roster that can even go out on the field and catch a pass. And they did it they had 4 or 5 on one drive consecutively. So a really good team, I don't think there's any shame in losing to that team. If you're Effingham, there were some things that went wrong for the Hearts that I'm sure the coaching staff wasn't happy about. But you were going to have to go in there and play a pretty close to perfect game to beat them. And it didn't happen. And you move on.
And that's the thing. A lot of times, Mater Dei, that game, there's zero margin for error. And I know back when my son played, it always seemed like first or second drive, there would be the deflected pass, or someone is open for a big gain and the receiver drops the ball, and just little things like that where you can't do that, especially at Mater Dei. And,
yeah.
The Mater Dei people were a little concerned going into the game.
Well,
I told you before, I was talking to a buddy of mine, and, they were looking at, wow, wins at Taylorville, wins at Mount Zion, and Effingham is, won a couple games the last few times these teams have met.
Yeah.
But it's just, that was a tough one for them. And now they've got Highland at home to end the season. I saw Highland got a win, I think Friday night, to go to 4-4 maybe, or 3-5. I forget where they're at.
Yeah, Highland is, as far as its record goes, and I'll pull it up real quick.
I know they're down a little bit, and from what I've heard from people down there is they've maybe got a little lull in their run of athletes they've had.
Yeah, they're 4-4.
Okay.
They beat Muscuda by 2 points this past week. And you look at their wins. They've won. The one thing I will say is they've won 4 out of 5. Jerseyville, Bethalto, Waterloo, and Muscuda, with a loss to Troy Triad mixed in there. The only one of those teams that, those are teams that are comparable sizes to Effingham, I guess you could say, as far as schools go. Yeah, Highland, not probably used to being 4-4 at this time of year, but
Right.
but they're going to be formidable. Like I said, they're apparently playing their best football. They've won 3 in a row, 4 out of 5. So, Effingham's going to need to play a good game. And the good news is, and like I said during our broadcast from Breeze, you get to these week 8 and week 9 games, and you just want to be playing for something. You want there to be stakes. You don't want your kids to be out there going through the motions just to get that season over with. And there are stakes. I think if Effingham gets to 5 wins, then they've got, with the playoff landscape being what it is, and with the Hearts having played 3 teams that are undefeated at this point in Mahomet, St. Teresa, and Breeze, there's tons of playoff points there. And so you feel pretty good about getting in with 5 wins. In fact, the talk is that you might be able to sneak in with 4 wins this year because of, the COVID situation.
Teams don't have 9 games. Teams have cut their season short.
Yeah. There's some of that. There's some of both of those things. There's some programs that just haven't finished. And then there's some programs that have had to lose games. And the fact that just basically leaves you with the situation where you may have to expand things a little more to fill out an 8-class playoff field. If you're Effingham, though, you can't be thinking about that. You got to be thinking about get that 5th win and get in, and you don't have to feel like it was a technicality. And you'll have done something if you win 5 games against this schedule. If you beat Highland in week 9 to get to 5 wins, you've done something. You really have. So
considering 3 or 4 losses are to unbeaten teams.
Absolutely. So there's plenty to play for. It's going to be looking at the forecast already for this week, and it seems like it's going to be a nice, cool football weather type of night. So there's, for the dozens of people that are going to hear this, and hopefully more, I hope that we can spread the word a little bit with this stable of guests that we had this week.
We'll be tagging this into our class reunion Facebook page, so I know. And then and I think growth, it's slow growth, and I have people still tell me, I've listened to one, I got to listen to the others. Those are, so we're gaining.
My point is that if you're hearing this on Monday afternoon or whenever before Friday, and you're around the Effingham area, well, then go out and watch. It's a team that has stuck with it and played hard all season long after the way that things got started, taking it on the chin a couple of times. I think you would not necessarily be surprised to see a group of high school kids just kind of say, well, that's it, and let's just get this over with. And that's not what this group has done. So, it's going to be senior night, and there's only 9 of them. And so that tells you 2 things. Like you should really come out and show some support for those kids those 9, but also, come get a glimpse of the future, because with any luck, you're going to have bigger senior classes in the future because of the kids that have had to play significant roles now. And again, it's going to be a winnable game. It's just a matter of how well you play. And so there's tons of reasons why it's an interesting matchup. And I think they would all appreciate to see a nice showing from the fans at Klosterman Field on Friday night.
Yeah, and I think so. And it'll be a good ball game. Like you said, having something to play for, I think is important. And I think they'll have a good turnout. I think you'll get a lot of people, especially when the weather cooperates, that always helps. So, good luck to the Hearts this Friday.
By the way, one more thing, the weather, not terrible Friday night at Breeze, but not great either.
You had a lot of rain, didn't you?
Yeah, we were looking at the forecast, and all the hourly forecasts were saying, about 7 o'clock it's going to stop raining. Well, that's not exactly how it went down.
7 Mountain Time.
Yeah, there were periods of rain throughout the game. Breeze Mater Dei has a turf field, so I don't think footing was a real issue, but it always makes things a little more interesting when there's rain coming down, just as far as handling the football. Turnovers were not a huge part of the game, though, so I don't know how much of a talking point it was, but just worth mentioning, that was really the first inclement weather that the Effinghams had to deal with all season. In fact, that was the first night that I could be like, this is football season type of weather, with the temperatures and everything, because it's just been hot. It's been hot
Yeah,
all season
it's
long.
been warm. Yeah, it really has. Another thing locally, I know tennis had their sectionals this past Saturday. I think Effingham hosted. I know Robinson actually nipped T-Town by a point to win it. So Totopolis, I know, won the doubles, had the first and third place finish in the doubles. So they got 2 doubles teams going to state. And then I think they had an individual get third in singles. I know Effingham's got a couple kids going to state, and I'm pretty sure St. Anthony's got at least one. So since I don't have all the kids' names, I don't want to give really any to slide any of the,
Sure.
especially the schools. But they're going to be up in Chicago this weekend. I think they start Thursday, and going to be chilly, but it's not going to be like sleet. So I think they're going to be okay. Cross country is starting to wind down. Volleyball's starting to wind down. All those postseasons are getting ready to start. So we're going to have this little soft spot here, Whitey, of about 2 weeks, about a week.
Yeah, I mean,
And it's going to get really busy.
I was over Neoga's junior high girls had a home game with Cumberland, and so I went and watched that because Neoga's coach at the junior high level is Seth James, and then his daughter Sammy coaches Cumberland, and so I always like to try to get to those games. They're friends of mine, and I was Kim Romack, the Neoga girls coach, helps out. She's the assistant at the junior high level, and I asked her, I said, so when's practice start? And she said, it's coming right up. So that in fact, I think maybe tonight is the first night of girls practice for them. So that's coming right around the bend, and I think you and I both hope that when basketball season's on and it's the one thing that's happening, we'll be able to really throw some energy into following that scene and having some halfway intelligent things to say about it. In the fall, it's a lot. There's so much going on. It's hard to keep track of it all. I mean, football, I see it every week, and so it's kind of easy for me to talk about it. But some of the other stuff, we'll get some more background info for next week and talk about some of the tennis exploits and stuff like that. But I'm looking forward to basketball. I'm looking forward to talking about it. And this area always has some teams that are worth your attention, and so that's what makes it fun to cover it in the Effingham area. Is that there's lots of good programs, and there's always a handful of teams that make a good run when the postseason starts.
Right, and I see you're sporting your Christmas tournament top.
Yeah,
I like that. And we had our first really dig in meeting. We always have one in July, just kind of wake everybody up. But we had our first kind of dig into things meeting, and it's time to start getting the following things done. And that usually keeps us hopping from here through just after Christmas. And I will say this right now, we've got like 15 and a half teams. We have a team due to change in coaching and such. We may be looking for a new team, which we're looking for every day right now. We've got a lot of leads. I mean, it will be filled. It's a lot nicer to have this deal with this in October than it was Thanksgiving week, like we did a couple of years ago. There may be a slight change there, but I think we're going to have a really, really strong tournament. I really do. And we're really excited about, that's coming up, and that's on the horizon. Nationally, nothing important's happened over the last few days. The Braves are up 2-0 against the Dodgers, and I've watched a little of it, Whitey. It's hard to watch, and I watch a little bit of the Red Sox and the Astros, and since I don't do fantasy baseball anymore, I don't know the whole league. And so I'm like, who are these guys? The Giants, this Duff guy, who is this guy? I thought maybe he owned a brewery or something. I don't know. But it's just, there's so much I don't know. And not being able to watch the Cardinals when they play with the way Bally had things set up, I just don't feel as connected to baseball right now in the postseason.
Well, I mean, listen, I could go off on a rant for the next couple hours about the problems that baseball has with getting its programming on the TVs of the people who want to support a team, but nobody who makes those decisions cares what I think, because obviously it's working for the people who are profiting off of it. I guess, I don't know. It seems like a bubble that has to burst at a certain point. And I have seen rumblings of some things changing, but yeah, depending on what TV service you use, you live here where we do. And, Cubs fans have a hard time seeing their team because of their own team-owned network that they're on. And then the Cardinals fans are having a hard time because of this Bally Sports, yeah, that's tough. But as far as the NLCS goes, it's been a fun couple of games. As a person with a rooting interest, sometimes they're a little difficult to watch just because it's been pretty tense. But I think that if I were an objective fan who was just a fan of baseball, I would think that these last couple of games have been truly fascinating to watch, just because of the ups and downs and the decisions that had to be made, or sometimes decisions that were made that maybe didn't have to be made. But they have been interesting to watch, and pretty good spectacle, I would think. I would think it's good for the game as a whole, the way those games have both come down to the wire. And then for me as a fan, obviously exciting that they have both come down in Atlanta's favor. The only tough thing is that everybody in my house is asleep by the time they end. So I get all excited and I run around a little bit, and I run upstairs to try to tell people, hey, we just won. And everyone just kind of rolls over and basically says, leave me alone.
I know the feeling, Whitey. I woke up my whole house when David Freese homered in Game 6. So, I mean, my wife thought someone had broke into our house and started yelling.
They just don't understand how important this stuff is. How can you,
Well, yeah.
how can you go to sleep when there's an NLCS game happening?
I fell asleep last night in the top of the ninth, so that just gives you an idea of.
Well, did you fall asleep before or after Will Smith let Trey Turner hit one to the wall? Like, off the bat, I was like,
yeah, man. I saw that. He was the leadoff batter, wasn't he?
Yeah, and it was.
And I saw Will Smith face Will Smith, so I saw that too.
I mean, that inning had. You talk about being tense, as a fan. Well, that inning. I mean, the Dodgers. I mean, any inning, like, you're facing somebody who could just stab you in the heart, right? Like, it's just what their team is. But they've. It's worked out so far, so a lot of fun. Well, and
hopefully you'll be in an even better mood next Monday.
So I'm playing with house money. Okay. I didn't expect it to get this far. So I'm feeling pretty optimistic about it. I try not to get too high or too low. 20-year-old me might have been a little different, but once you have kids and stuff, it's hard to get as
you're dialed down a little bit.
Yeah. You gotta, I don't know. You can't live or die with the exploits of a team that you have no control over. It's just not healthy. But don't get me wrong, pretty excited. I wouldn't have driven all the way to Milwaukee just to see a game if I didn't care a little bit. So anyway, that was fun. We'll talk more about that. We'll skip the NFL as usual because the Bears suck. I know they're 3-3, but they still suck. Okay, let's not get too excited.
So next week, I think we've had a guest I've moved a couple of times. I think we'll be able to probably pull that off next week. I've got a couple other people I'm working on. So, we'll get that to materialize. And I think we had a really good show today. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, those guys were a lot of fun. That's one of those things where you'd like to just get a block off a couple of hours and get them all. And, I'm sure people could keep talking, but people are busy. And
well, that's one. If you're sitting at a round table with some cold sodas, it becomes very interesting.
Yeah, I was gonna say what you should have done is surreptitiously placed a microphone right in the middle of the table when you were with all these people. And we do some light editing.
We may have
And
had to
then
do some moderate editing.
well, that was good though. Coach Potthoff has had some nice things to say to us about what we've done in the first few
Right.
weeks, and so it was nice for me to get a chance to put. I don't know Drew. His time at Effingham was
Drew, I mean, the
online.
funny thing is the people in this that we had on today that they haven't changed in 40 years. Drew was the young coach working for the legend. But he and Jack were the great, I mean, they were yin and yang, Jack didn't get excited. Drew would get excited, Drew was in charge of, okay, it's time to start doing your conditioning at the end of practice or whatever, Drew, he loved that, Jack wasn't going to tape your ankle 2 inches above where you'd shaved your ankle, so you had to rip off more hair. Drew did, and he'd laugh at you, But it was so fun. And one thing I didn't get to say, I still remember after we beat Monticello going, because you had to go to the gym and downstairs into the locker room, and for some reason I was going down the stairs right in front of Coach Klosterman, and you could almost see tears in his eyes. He was so excited and happy after that win. And then, that's just one of those things I always remember. I see it. When you mentioned the field, when we played, it was Klosterman Field. The field was named after Jack. The field was named after Jack about, I don't know, 6 years into his coaching career at Effingham.
Well, that's kind of why I prefaced that question with I don't know exactly what the history was there, but yeah, I didn't. I guess that's part of the handicap that I'm working with.
Yeah, that's understandable, and it was a special time, and he was a special person. He really was.
Well, I think that's as good a place to leave it as any, Mike.
Right.
Again, I'll make the same plea that I do every week. If you're listening to this and you're enjoying it, then tell somebody about it. Feel free to get on your Facebook and share it, subscribe on YouTube and all that good stuff. And you'd be doing us a favor if you did. We're sure enjoying it, but the bigger audience we can eventually reach, the better. And so we're kind of doing this grassroots, and that means that your help is very much appreciated. So again, thanks to everyone who joined us today. Thanks to Mike for rounding them up and doing all the booking work on our guests so far. But it's a fun conversation, and hopefully we'll have another good one next week. So Mike, unless you got anything to throw in, I think we will call this a show.
Wrap it up. Sounds good. See you, bud.
Yep. Take it easy.